Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Samach, Daf 60 of Masechta Shabbos. Quick overview before we begin. We're going to talk about, right, the Mishnah says that a woman should not go out with a ring that does not have a seal on it on Shabbos. But if she does, she's not chayav achatas, i.e. it's patur aval aser. We're going to discuss that for a bit. And then we get to a new Mishnah, and once we get to the new Mishnah, we're basically going to be talking about shoes with spikes in them. And that'll basically take us to the end of the daf. So I hope you're excited about shoes with spikes. And if you are excited about shoes and spikes, then this is the daf for you. So stay with us. Let's get started. So we're going to start on daf Nun Tes Amud Beis, about 8 lines from the bottom, where it says v'lo b'katla. Okay, so a woman should not go out on Shabbos with a katla. What is this katla? So we actually came into it. We actually ran into it the other day. What was it? 2 days ago. My katla minakta pare. Okay, a bib. Apparently, women would wear bibs. I guess it was like a fashion thing. But anyways, yeah, that's what it was. So there's some kind of bib that would collect crumbs when they would eat. And Rashi gives an alternative explanation, which also could be some kind of thing that she would also wear across her neck to connect the two ends of her clothing, on her neck or something. Yeah, that's what I kind of understand it. I don't know, maybe if there's modern clothing that's similar that I'm just not noticing. I don't know. Let us know, I guess. Nizamim, nizme'af, okay? It says that a woman should not go out wearing a nose ring. Well, yeah, wearing nizamim, and the Gemara clarifies for us that is talking about nose rings. And the concern is that she may take it off to show her friend. That is not the case by earrings, because earrings, I guess, I think Rashi says they were under I guess she was wearing something on her head, and the earrings would be kind of difficult to access and get in and out because of this, I don't know, thing that she was tying around her head. Alright. It could be hard to imagine all these detailed clothing descriptions sometimes, but I don't know, maybe we should make these things more alive and contemporary. That would be a cool project, I guess, to kind of actually really think about these things and conceptualize them, and then make designs and draw based on them. That could be a fun little project. It actually could be a really fun project. The question is if I'll do it. Maybe. Or maybe we could do it as a group. I think maybe that's the motivation I would need. If we do a group Babylon Talmud project like this, to make really cool modern designs of what we think that clothing may have looked like 2,000 years ago, that would be really fun and interesting. I just need the motivation to do it. If anybody wants to do it with me, we could work on it and we can do really cool stuff. I bet you it'll be really cool. You won't be disappointed. I just need the inspiration to do it. Alright. Now, let's move on. Let's move on. Maybe we'll do it. Okay. Anyways. V'lo b'tabas she'ein aleh chosam. So, not with a ring that doesn't have on it a seal. Okay? So, we say in the Mishnah that if a woman is wearing a ring that doesn't have a seal. What's a ring that doesn't have a seal? A ring. I don't know, she's wearing a regular ring, okay? And so we're saying don't go out with it on Shabbos. But if you do, no sweat. You don't have to bring a korban or anything. Okay, so now the Gemara says the implication being that, yeah, if it doesn't have a seal, if it's just a regular ring, so then it's patur aval aser. But if it does have a seal, so then it would be mamish aser. It should be chayav as a korban chatas. So alma lav tachshitu, which means, therefore, that a ring that has a seal on it, and I think that these are seals that they would basically stamp onto letters and things like this to make sure that nobody's tampering with it. So then it wouldn't be an adornment anymore, a tachshit, if the ring has a seal. V'raminu, but 1 second, we have a question. Tachshite nashim tmei. Okay, we say that adornments of women are mekabel tuma. Okay, ve'elu en tachshite nashim, and the following are adornments of women. Okay, listen closely. Katlaos, these bibs, Nizamim, these are actually earrings, not nose rings. As we're going to see, we're going to mention earrings separately. V'tabaos, as well as regular rings that you put on your fingers. Okay, those would be considered tachshitim. And now the Gemara, and now this brisa clarifies. V'tabas, when we say tabas, ben she'esh alei achosam, ben she'ein alei achosam. When we say tabas, that we're saying are makabel tuma, it's whether, and well, we're saying they're makabel tuma, and we're also saying that they are tachshitin, that they are adornments. And we're saying whether it has a seal on it, whether it doesn't have a seal on it. So it sounds like all rings, whether they have a seal, whether they don't have a seal, would be considered a tachshit, would be considered an adornment. Fine. V'nizmei af, and then the brisa concludes that also nose rings would be considered adornments. I don't know what I said when I said nizamim earlier. I meant to say earrings. Did I say that? Nizamim earlier was earrings, and this are nose rings. Okay. Now, the brisa said that rings, whether they have a seal on it, whether they don't have a seal on it, okay, would be considered a tachshet, an adornment, and therefore would be makabel tuma. So, if that's the case, then how come our Mishnah is saying that if the ring does not have a seal on it, it's patur avalasar, implying that if it has a seal on it, you'd be chayav achatas. But I thought we're saying it's an adornment. If it's an adornment, then you shouldn't be chayav korban chatas. Then it's mutter to go out to Rosh Hashanah with an adornment. At least midaraisa. So that's the Gemara's kasha. So Amar Abzera. So Abzera comes to answer the kasha. Lo kasha, no problem. Harab nechemia harabanan, easy. Our Mishnah that says that you're not allowed to go out with that if you go out with a ring with a seal on it, you'd be chayav achatas. That's Rabbi Nechemia. This brisa that's saying that rings, whether they have or whether they don't have a seal, are nonetheless an adornment. That's the Chachamim. Let's see. Titania, as we learn in a brisa, he shel mateches v'chosama shel almog. This we also saw the other day. I think on Amud Beis. I think that if you have a ring that is made out of metal and it has on it a seal that is made out of wood, Timeya, the ring is going to be Timeya, because since the ring itself is metal, and Pshute Klei Matechos, just regular old vessels made out of metal, are Makabel Tuma. So therefore this ring will be Makabel Tuma, even though it has a wooden seal on it. Now, he shall almog v'chosam shel mateches. If the ring part is made out of wood and the seal is made out of metal, Tahora, it's not Mekabelas Tuma, because the ring is the important part, and the ring is made out of wood, and Pshute Klei Eitz, just regular old wooden vessels that don't have like a receptacle on them, are not Mekabel Tuma. So therefore it would be Tahora. Rabbi Nechemia mitame. However, Rabbi Nechemia would say that a ring that is wooden and has a metal seal on it would taka be tame. How come? Shahai Rabbi Nechemia omer, because Rabbi Nechemia would say b'tabas halech achar chosama, that when you have a ring, the important thing that we go by is the seal. And therefore, since the seal is made out of metal, that's what we care about, and therefore it will be makabel tuma because it's metal. And therefore, for our case, since Rabbi Nechemia's opinion is that you go based on the seal, so a woman going out with a ring that has a seal on it, well, the thing that we care about is a seal, and a seal is not a adornment, it's not a tachshit, it's a masui, it's a burden, and therefore that's why you'd be chayav echatas. Now the brisa continues that Rabbi Nechemia says be'ol halech achar samlonav, that when it comes to a yoke of a cow. Now, a yoke of a cow is like these, like pieces of wood that you would have two cows, like walking next to each other, and then you would kind of connect them with like a piece of wood above their neck and a piece of wood below their neck, and then you'd have like these two pegs that hold the two pieces of wood together, and then you'd have the two cows, and you would have like a plow attached to the yoke, and they'd kind of walk, and the plow would kind of plow the field. Anyways, so Rabbi Nechemia's opinion is that the most important part in the yoke is not the, boards of wood on top and bottom, rather it's the pegs that are holding them into place. He seems like the what's it called? Nonconformist over here. He has like the sort of unique opinion that he's always looking at like the the little piece, and that's his most important part. It's the seal on the ring, it's the pegs in the yoke. Bekolav alechacher masmirosav. If you have, so a kolav in modern Hebrew is a hanger. So apparently back then they would have some kind of, I don't know, Rashi describes some kind of thing that was, I guess, shaped like a modern day hanger. It was like a triangle, and it was made out of like wood, and you would knock these pegs there in. You would put some pegs into this wood triangle thing, and you would then hang belts and stuff like that on these metal nails, and that's how you would sell like belts and straps. You would kind of walk around with this thing, and there would be belts hanging from it, and that's how people would see them. So Rabbi Nechemia says that on this thing you would go after the nails. Okay, Besulam alechachar shleivosav. If we're talking about a ladder, the most important thing would be the rungs. Be'arsa alecha achar shal shalosav. And if you have some kind of a scale, and the scale was like one tall beam vertical, and then you'd have another tall beam across the top like a T, and then from that top beam that's making the T, you would have like the letter T. So then you would have like these chains hanging off, and on the chains would be like this plate that you'd put the thing that you're weighing on. So those chains, that little detail of the scale, those chains hanging down from the top part of the scale, that is the most important according to Rabbi Nechemia. Okay, but remember, going back to the beginning of this opinion of Rabbi Nechemia, the most important thing of the ring would be the seal, and the seal is a masui, and therefore that's why she would be chayeves a korban chatas for going out to Rosh Hashanah with them, and therefore the author of our Mishnah is Rabbi Nechemia. And the Chachamim say Hakol holech achar maimed. Everything goes based on what is holding the thing, the sort of thing that the thing is on. How is that for a description? So, meaning on a ring, you have the seal, but the seal is like, attached to a ring. The ring is sort of the base for it. So that would be the most important thing according to the Chachamim, right? So, and by the yoke, the most important thing is the yoke part, not the nails not the pegs that are holding the yoke together, right? On the ladder, it would be the wooden beams of the ladder, etc. Okay, fine. And therefore, the Chachamim say that on a ring, the most important thing would be the actual ring part, and therefore it would be considered a tachshit even when there is a seal on it, and she would not be chayav as chatas according to the Chachamim for going out with it to Rosh Hashanah. Rava, so that was Reb Zera's opinion. Now Rava Amar, Litzdadim katane. Oh, so Rava says you actually have to understand this brisa, right? When it says that v'tabaz ben she'esh le'achosim ben she'ena le'achosim, it's actually talking about two different things, right? Whether there's a chosim, whether there's no chosim, it's talking about two different things, right? One of them is talking about a male, a ring for a man, and one of them is talking about a ring for a woman, right? So Rava Amar Litzdadim Katani, you have to kind of divide it into two sides. Okay? Yesh aleh chosam tachshit deish. When it says that if there is a ring, it would be considered if there would be a seal, it would be considered an adornment. That means it would be considered an adornment for a man. Okay? The assumption is that a seal would be more of like something that a man would be going out with and using for like business and stuff like that. Okay? And if there's no seal on this ring, then it would be an adornment for a woman, and a woman would be allowed to go out with it. However, therefore that brisa that says that when you have a ring, whether it has a seal, whether it doesn't have a seal, it's considered a tachshit, that doesn't mean that whether it has a seal or not, it would be a tachshit for a woman. It means whether or not it has a seal, it would be a tachshit, but if it has a seal, the tachshit is for a man. If it doesn't have a seal, the tachshit is for a woman. Now, if a woman would go out to Rosh Hashanah with this ring that has a seal, well then she's not wearing what would be considered a tachshit for her, and it would be a masui, and she would be chayav as a korban chatas. Weiter. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Amar, says the holy Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, the Mari de Uvda, as we learned the other day, a good Bal Midos, somebody with very good characteristics, an upstanding individual. Amar Tuma Shabbis Karamis. One second. According to Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, he says you're confusing different topics, okay? Our Mishnah said that if a woman goes out to Rosh Hashanah, okay, on Shabbos, with a ring that has a seal, she's chayav as a korban chatas, and it wouldn't be considered an adornment. Okay, fine. Now, we have a different brisa that says that regarding tuma, whether it has a seal or not, it would still become tameh. Shabbos and Tumah are different things with different, considerations. Okay? So Tumah, Kli Maisa Amar Rachmana, Uchli Hu. When it comes to Tumah, and we're trying to figure out, is this ring going to be Makabel Tumah or not? So what we're taking into consideration is that, as the pasuk says, Kli Ma'aseh, it has to be a vessel that you can use. And a ring with a seal is certainly a vessel that you can use, and therefore it will be Mikabel Tumah. Okay? Shabbos Mishum Masui Amar Rachmana. Ein alei chosam tachshid, yesh alei chosam masui. Shabbos, what we're taking into consideration when we're trying to figure out, can she go out with it or not? We're saying, well, would this be considered a burden or not? Would it be considered a masui? If the answer to that question is yes, it would be considered a burden, well then she won't be able to go out with it. And therefore, a ring that has a seal on it would be considered a burden, and therefore she cannot go out with it. If it doesn't have a seal on it, it wouldn't be a burden, and therefore it would be a adornment, and she can go out with it. V'lo b'machat she'ena nikuva. And we also say that a woman should not go out with a needle that does not have a hole in it, meaning a regular needle for like sewing or whatever, I guess, would have like a hole for a thread to go in. If the needle doesn't have a hole in it, then it could be theoretically used for some kind of adornment, and therefore she would be able to go out to Rishus Harabim with it. Well, the Mishnah says not to, but even if she does, she wouldn't be chayav a korban chatas, right? It's pater aval aser. So the question is, what's the reason to assume that it would be an adornment? Because if it was a masoi, then it wouldn't be allowed at all. So lemay chazer, what's it fit for? Amar Rav Yosef hol v'isha ogeres basaira. Okay, so Rav Yosef says, look, if you have a woman and she's wearing some kind of a hat or a hair covering, and there are stray hairs that didn't make it into the hat or the hair covering, so what she can do is she could take this needle, wrap around some hair around the needle, stick the needle into her like hat or hair covering, and then she can go out with it, and that's what it would be good for. Okay, and we're saying, right, not to do it, but you wouldn't be a korban chatas. Amalei Abaye utavi kibiris tahora v'tishteri. But one second, if that's the case, that she's like using this needle to kind of wrap hair around it and stick it into her hat, okay, well then that should be like a garter. I think I got that right. It's totally women's clothing. It's totally like women's clothing stuff. I'm not an expert by any means, but garter, it's like this thing that I think women wear like to hold up their stockings or something. They like strap it into their stockings, I think, and then it like holds them up. So we say that would be permitted, right? Because it's like clothing that she needs it to kind of hold up her stockings. So it would be allowed. So Abaye says, like, why? So if she's using this needle to kind of wrap her hair around it, and then stick it into her hat, like, what should be the problem? That should be totally okay. So Ela Tirgma Rav Ada Narsha Kamid Rav Yosef. So rather, Rav Ada Narsha explains in front of Rav Yosef, what is this machat thing that we say is pater aval aser? So Hovisha Cholek is basaira. Okay, it's some kind of needle that I guess a woman would use like as a comb, I guess, to kind of split her hair. Now b'Shabbos l'maychaz. So what are you going to use it for on Shabbos that would make it an adornment? Amarava tas shelzav yeshla al rosha. Okay, well, it's not just a plain needle. It's a plain needle that has some kind of a metal plate, a golden plate at the end that I guess she can use to comb her hair or something. No, or just like a golden plate at the end. So b'chol cholek is ba'saira. So during the week she'll use. So there's like basically two ends, right? So there's like the needle part, which has the pointy end that somehow she would use to like comb her hair or like split her hair. And then if on the other end there's like this gold piece, and that she could use to and that she could theoretically just kind of like hang down on her forehead, and it would look really nice. So b'chol, during the week, cholek is basar. So during the week she uses like the needle part to like divide her hair. B'Shabbos manichasa keneged padachta, and on Shabbos she can kind of like have the golden part be on her forehead, and it'll look really nice. So we're saying that you shouldn't, it's an adornment, so you won't be chayav korban chatos, but still don't go out with it, because I guess that we're concerned that she might take it off and show her friends. Okay, sounds pretty cool. Lo yetze haish b'sandal masumar. So a man should not go out with a shoe that has like spikes coming out of the bottom of it. We're going to learn a little bit about shoes with spikes coming out of the bottom of it now. Okay? That's funny. So you shouldn't go out just wearing one shoe. And that's only, we're not really going to get into that today, so I can't tell you too much information about it, but that's only as long as he doesn't have an injured foot. So just like in regular circumstances, a man should not go out wearing one shoe. And Rashi gave two explanations. One is because of the yentas. We don't want the yentas thinking that maybe he's got his other shoe up his sleeve or something and he's carrying it. And the other option is that maybe he'll be embarrassed, that he'll think people are laughing at him because he's only wearing one shoe, so he's going to take off the other shoe and carry it, and that wouldn't be so geschmack. Okay? V'lo b'tefillin, and he also shouldn't be, carrying or maybe even wearing his tefillin. I don't know, we'll have to see. V'lo b'kamiyah bizman she'eno min hamumche, he can't go out with a amulet, as long as the amulet has not been proven to be effective. But once it's been proven to be an effective amulet, then you can wear it. V'lo b'shiryon, not with like armor. V'lo b'kasta, not with a helmet. V'lo b'magafayim, and not with boots. Okay? V'im yatsa, eno chayv chatas. But if he does go out with these items, he's not chayv chatas because, even these like boots and armor and helmets and stuff, theoretically, if it was during the week and it was wartime, so that would just be a regular article of clothing, so it would be okay. Okay. We are, I think that we are, Bobo is joining us now. He's starting to come out, so I got to. I'm going to focus. Try to focus on the Gemara and not on the noise. Sandal amasumar. Okay, so if you have a sandal that has nails in it, my timer. So what's the problem with sandals that have these pegs coming out of the bottom, these nails coming out of the bottom? So Shmuel said, Shilfei ashmad hayu. There was some kind of a dangerous. There was one of those periods of Jewish history where it was very dangerous to go out, and the Yidden unfortunately had to hide from their oppressors. Okay, and there were a bunch of Yidden that were hiding in a cave. And they made a rule: it's a one-way entrance over here, right? If you want to come into the cave, you can come into the cave, but you can't leave the cave. The reason being that, before you enter into the cave, you're going to look around and make sure that none of the enemies are looking. So, you'll enter into the cave safely. But once you're in the cave, there's no way to know what's going on around the cave. And it's very perilous to leave the cave because, when you leave, you don't know who's going to notice you, and there's no way of knowing in advance who's around. So therefore, once you're in, you got to stay in. Now, nepach sandalo shel echad me'en. And what happened was somebody was wearing a shoe with spikes, and he was wearing it backwards. Apparently, it was just basically a pretty primitive shoe, and I guess you would just kind of strap it on your foot, and you could theoretically put it on backwards. Now, somebody came into the cave wearing shoes that were on backwards. So if you would look at the marks of the spikes, it would appear as though he was leaving the cave, even though he was really coming into the cave, and they got confused. And kisvurinhim, they thought, echad man yatsa vra'u oivim v'achshav ban alen, and they got very nervous that somebody actually left the cave, and now the enemies noticed and found them and foiled their hiding place, and they were now going to come and massacre all of them. So dachuku zeh bazeh v'hargu zeh zeh yosef mashargu b'hem oivim. And what ended up happening is that all the people in the cave started pushing each other and fighting with each other, and they ended up killing more people on their own than the actual enemies ended up killing them. So that was pretty much a massacre that happened because of these spiky shoes. Rabbi Eli ben Elazar Omer, says Rabbi Eli ben Elazar, b'mayra hayu yoshvin, that they were all sitting in a cave, okay? Vishamu kol me'ala mayra, and they heard voices coming from on top of the cave, and that's what happened. Kisvurin ayu shabo, meaning I still think that they were the spikes, but basically there was more to the story, which was that now they were in the cave, and they were actually hearing voices, or at least they thought that they heard voices, on top of the cave. Kisvurin ayu shabo aleim oivim, and they assumed the worst, which is that there were enemies all around them. Dachaku zeh bazeh, and they pushed each other. V'hargu zeh zeh yosef mashargu b'hen oivim, and they killed each other more than the enemies killed them. Rami Bar Yechezkel Amar b'beis hakneses hayu yoshvin. Rami Bar Yechezkel said that Lemaisa they were sitting in a shul. They were sitting in a beis hakneses. Which is interesting that was like considered a good hiding spot, right? We had a similar thing also with Reb Shimon ben Yochai when he had to run away from the Romans. For the first stage, he was just learning in a beis hamedrash, and apparently that was a good hiding spot. And these guys were also hiding in a beis hamedrash. But then Reb Shimon moved to a cave, and over here also the two options that we have, either they were in a cave or they were in a beis hamedrash. Interesting that those were the two options. Although no, they say beis hakneses, but I think it's the same idea, or maybe not. And they heard voices from behind the shul. And they assumed the worst, which was that their enemies came to destroy them. And they pushed each other around, and they killed more of each other, more than the enemies killed them. And at that point, they made a gezer and they said, nobody is allowed to go out with these spiky shoes on Shabbos because of this terrible incident that happened on account of somebody wearing spiky shoes. Whatever, he messed up, he wore them backwards, but on account of the spiky shoes, this terrible outcome happened, this terrible incident happened, so therefore no more wearing spiky shoes on Shabbos. So the Gemara wants to know, what does that have to do with Shabbos? If the issue is that there was a terrible thing that happened with spiky shoes, then spiky shoes should just be banned completely. What does that have to do with Shabbos? So the Gemara answers, Ma'aseh Kiava b'Shabbos Hava. The story, right, when this story happened, it was on Shabbos. So because this story happened on Shabbos, their sort of ban on spiked shoes is only specifically on Shabbos. B'Yom Tov Lishtri, well, if that's the case, then you should be allowed to wear them on Yom Tov. Allah Matnan, why do we have a Mishnah Masechta Beitza that says, Avalo sandal musumar v'lo minol sheno tafur? How can we have a Mishnah that says that you may not go out with a spiky shoe on Shabbos, on Yom Tov, and not with a shoe that isn't sewn? So the Gemara answers, well, b'Shabbos my taima, di'ika kinufya, b'Yom Tov nami ika kinufya. So we say, yeah, well, right, that's true, but, on actually, right, so we had this terrible story with the shoe, and forget about Shabbos for a second, right, we had this terrible story with the shoe, and it happened because there were a bunch of people gathered together, and they ended up killing each other because of this shoe. So therefore, whenever we have a bunch of people gathered together, that's when you're not going to wear spiky shoes. So that includes Shabbos and Yom Tov, to which the Gemara says, well, Tanis Tzibor ika kinufya litzar. So, well, on a public fast day, people are getting together. So why don't we say also that on public fast days, you're not allowed to wear spiky shoes? So my answer is, Ma'aseh Kiava b'chinufia de isura, hacha kinufia de aterahu. So the Gemara says, okay. However, this story with the spiky shoes, not only were people gathered together, they were gathered together on a day that was asur b'melacha. Therefore, it would apply to days that people are gathered together and it's asur b'melacha, like Shabbos, like Yom Tov. And that is when these spiky sandals are not allowed. V'afilu Rab Chanina ben Akiva de amelo asu ela biyardin uvesvina uchmaisa shahaya hanimili yardin d'shani mishar nairis aval Yom Tov v'Shabbos kiadadinenu titnanen ben Yom Tov v'Shabbos elochon nefesh bavad. I just read a lot, but let me give you a quick intro to what we're talking about with this Chanina ben Akiva. Basically, there was this one time when they were transporting. Apparently, it's a Gemara in Masechta Chagiga. I never learned Masechta Chagiga. So, we'll get there. We'll learn it together. But in any event, there was a story in Masechta Chagiga where they had to transport some ashes of the Para Aduma. Okay? Now, ashes of the Para Aduma are very expensive. It's very rare, right, to get a Para Aduma. Lots of halachas about it. Anyways, they had to transfer these ashes of a Para Aduma, and they transferred it across the Yarden in a boat. And then it turned out that the boat had a kazayas min hames in there, right? A kazayas of a dead body, which means that the boat was an ohel, and everything in the ohel, including this very valuable Efer Paraduma, itself became tamei, which is one of the interesting things about Efer Paraduma as well, right? Meaning this thing is going to make other people tahor, yet it itself can become tamei. In any event, because of that incident, the Chacham said, you know what? No more transporting Efer Para Aduma, ashes of the Para Aduma, basically at all, as long as it involves water and boats or transporting across water, whether it's in the Yarden, whether it's in any other body of water, whether it's in a boat, whether it's in, a bag on your back and you're swimming across the river. Basically, the rabbi said, because of this story, because of this incident, any transporting of Efer Paraduma across bodies of water, I don't care what body of water it is, I don't care whether it's in a boat or a jet skis or anything, not allowed. Now, Reb Chanina ben Akiva said, no, we can't just broadly, apply it wherever the heck we want. Only in the specific case would it not be allowed, i.e., it wouldn't be allowed in the Yarden and it wouldn't be allowed in a boat. But as long as it's, not the Yarden and it's not in a boat, right? Or maybe even if it's in the Yarden but you swim, then it would be acceptable. Therefore, what we're saying is that even according to Rabbi Chanina ben Akiva, who says that we don't apply incidents broadly, he would nonetheless say that you would be allowed, that this spiked shoe event can be applied from Shabbos to Yom Tov, because that would still be considered the same. And that's what the Gemara is saying, right? So meaning the story with the shoes happened on Shabbos, but still we can apply this thing where we say don't wear the spiky shoes, we can apply it to Yom Tov as well, because Yom Tov and Shabbos are pretty much the same. So this is what the Gemara says. So va'afilu Rab Chanina ben Akiva. So even according to Rab Chanina ben Akiva, do amr lo asu ela biyardin uvesvina uchemaisa shahaya, who says that by the case of the Efer Para Aduma, the only transporting of it that would be usher is across the Yarden and in a boat, just like was the details of that story. Nonetheless, hanimile Yarden deshaynim mishar nairis. That is only, because the Yarden, the Jordan River, is different than other rivers. As Rashi says, Berochav or Be'omek, whether in its own width or it's in its own depth, and therefore, it's specific to the Yarden and in a boat that you don't transport the Efer Paraduma, but other, rivers and things you would be allowed to transport it. Aval Yom Tov v'Shabbos ki adadeinenu. However, Yom Tov and Shabbos, they're pretty much the same. The Tnanin ben Yom Tov l'Shabbos el ochel nefesh bavad, as the Mishnah says, I don't even know where this Mishnah is. Where, in Beitza? I don't know. That the only difference between Yom Tov and Shabbos is ochel nefesh. The only difference is that on Yom Tov you're allowed to prepare food. Okay? But otherwise they're exactly the same. And therefore, even though the story of this spiked sandals was on Shabbos, the outcome of which was that we don't wear spiked shoes or spiked sandals on Shabbos, it would apply equally to Yom Tov as well, because Yom Tov and Shabbos are extremely similar. Friends, let's go weiter. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, said Rav Yehuda in the name of Shmuel, Lo shanu ela l'chazek aval l'noi mutter. Okay? When we say that you're not allowed to wear sandals with spikes on them on Shabbos, it's only if the spikes, these nails that are nailed into them, it's only if they are to strengthen the shoe, to give support to the shoe. However, if it's to give beauty to the shoe, if it's to make it look cool, if it's a style, so then it would be permitted. V'chama l'noi, how many of these nails would be permitted if they are for stylistic interests? So Rabbi Yochanan Amar Chamish Bazeh v'Chamish Bazeh. Rabbi Chanina Amar Sheva Bazeh v'Sheva Bazeh. Rabbi Yochanan says that for style you would be allowed to have 5 nails on each shoe. Rabbi Chanina says you'd be allowed 7 per shoe. Amar Rabbi Yochanan Rav Shem bar Abba, and Rabbi Yochanan said to Rabbi Shem bar Abba, Azbra lecha, I will explain to you. Ledidi, when I say 5 nails on each shoe, I'm talking about shtay mikan v'shtay mikan v'achas b'tarsiosav. I'm talking about 1 nail by the toes on the outer part of the shoe, 1 nail by the heel on the outer part of the shoe, 1 nail by the toes on the inside part of the shoe, and 1 nail by the heel on the inside part of the shoe. And then you have a 5th nail by the straps of the shoe to hold it closed. Fine. Rabbi Chanina, Gimel Mikan v'Gimel Mikan v'Achaz b'Tarsi Yosav. And according to Rabbi Chanina, it would be 3 by the toes, 3 by the heels, and 1 for the strap. Okay? Meisvei, we have a kasha on Rabbi Yochanan. Sandal anote. Okay? If you have a sandal and the sole is kind of rubbing out and it's uneven now. Okay? Oselo Sheva Divir Rab Nosson. So Rab Nosson says you can add 9 sort of nails to the shoe to kind of even out the sole. Alright? Rebbe Matir B'Yud Gimel. Rebbe says that you can use up to 13 of these nails. So I understand Reb Chanina's opinion. Reb Chanina says 7 nails, and Rabbi Nassim in this brisa says 7 nails. Bingo. Rabbi Nassim and Reb Chanina match up. Ella, Rabbi Yochanan da Amar Kiman. But who does Rabbi Yochanan say? Rabbi Yochanan says that you're allowed to put 5 nails in. Who does he line up with? Reb Nassim says 7. Rebbe says 13. Nobody says 5. So Ella, Rabbi Yochanan da Amar Kiman. Who da Amar Ki Rabbi Nehorai. Rabbi Yochanan says like Rabbi Nehorai. The Tanya, we learn in the Brisa, Rabbi Nehorai Omer, says the holy Rabbi Nehorai. Mutter, hey mutter. V'sheva aser. 5 nails is allowed, 7 nails is not allowed. Zeo, so Rabbi Yochanan holds like Rabbi Nehorai. Amrle Eifa l'Rabba bar Chana. Eifa said to Rabbi bar Chana, Atun talmidei Rabbi Yochanan aviduk Rabbi Yochanan. Of course, Rabba bar Chana was a student of Rabbi Yochanan. So Eifa says to him, look, you are a student of Rabbi Yochanan, so you do like Rabbi Yochanan. Ana naivid Rabbi Chanina. But we will do like Rabbi Chanina and add up to 7 nails to our shoes. Okay. Rav Huna mir Rav Ashi. Now Rav Huna asked Rav Ashi. Now this is interesting to me, just in terms of generationally. Rav Huna was like a pretty early Amora, right? He was generation 2 of Amoraim. He was a student of I think Rav and Shmuel, or at least Rav. Rav Ashi was like 5th generation Amora. So I don't know why Rav Huna would be asking a question from Rav Ashi. I don't know the answer. Maybe it was a different Rav Huna. But in any event, Rav Huna Rav Ashi, so Rav Huna asked Rav Ashi, Chomesh Mau, can you put 5 pegs, 5 nails in a shoe? Afilu Zayin Mutter, Rav Ashi said you can even put in 7. Wow. Okay, Tesmai, what about 9? Afilu Ches Aser, even 8 are Aser. So it sounds like Rav Ashi is pretty much saying like Rav Chanina, that you can put in up to 7 nails, no more. Ba'a minei hahu ratzana me Rabbi Ami. A certain shoemaker asked Rabbi Ami. Okay, tafro mi b'fnim mau. Okay, so it sounds like if you basically now add some leather to the sandal and you sew it together, making it now into a shoe. Okay, up until now we've been talking about sandals, really, right? So he's asking, what if you make it now into a shoe? Can you go out with some nails hanging out on the bottom? So Amrle mutter v'le'adaina my taima. So Rabbi Ami answered this shoemaker. He says, yeah, it's no problem. If you add some leather to it and you make it into a shoe rather than a sandal, so then you would be allowed to have these nails. It would be no problem. But I don't know why. Right? So Rabbi Ami says, I heard from Rabbi Yochanan. So Rashi points out that he heard from Rabbi Yochanan, because he was a student of Rabbi Yochanan, that, and I think in the cemetery in Tiberia, kind of like all these rabbis are buried there, like Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Ami, Rabbi Asi. Anyways, so I think that's where the Rambam is buried as well. So Rabbi Ami answered the shoemaker, says, yeah, as long as you make it into a shoe, it would be okay to have these nails, but I don't remember why. Amr Rav Ashi, so Rav Ashi says to Rabbi Ami, which is also interesting, because Rav Ashi, I believe, was in Bavel and Rabbi Ami was in Eretz Yisrael, so I don't know why they would be talking to each other. V'lo yada mar my taima, you don't know why it would be allowed. Kevin detarfo mi b'fnim havle minal. Well, once you kind of sew some leather onto this sandal, it becomes a shoe. And besan lo gazu be'rabanan, b'minal lo gazu be'rabanan. This whole gezerah of not going out with sandals with like these spikes, these nails sticking out of them, and that's only by sandals. Because of the story that happened. There was that story with the sandals and that whole bad thing happened. So they said don't wear sandals with spikes, but shoes would be acceptable. And that is why once you kind of make it into a shoe, you would be allowed to have the nails there. Rabbi Abba bar Zavda, Rabbi Abba bar Avina. So Rabbi Abba bar Zavda asked Rabbi Abba bar Avina, Asau kmin kalbus mau. What if you instead of having the nails just being straight and nailing them to the shoes and they stick out at the bottom, what if you kind of make them into a horseshoe kind of shape? You kind of change the shape of it. So Amalei mutter, so he said to him, it's permitted. It marnami was also stated, Amar Rabbi Yossi Reb Chanina asok min kabus mutter. If you make the nails like a horseshoe kind of shape, like a half moon kind of shape, so then it would be permitted. Amar Reb Sheshes, says of Sheshes, Chipeu kulo b'masmeros kedei shelo te'eh karka ochalto mutter. Okay. If you kind of like, I think like just surround like the sole of the shoe with nails so that like the leather of the sole isn't on the ground and will get like worn out. Like instead you want to put like nails there, so that would be acceptable. Tani kavasa to Rav Sheshes, we have a brisa in support of Rav Sheshes, lo yetzeh ish b'sandal masumer. Okay, a person should not go out with a sandal that is nailed. V'lo yitayel mibayis levayis, and you shouldn't go from one house to the next, I guess, with these sandals. Afilu mimita lemita, you shouldn't even go from one bed to the next. Aval metaltlin also lechazos bo esakli v'lismach bo karyamita, but you can move this sandal if you want to cover some kind of vessel with it or put it under a bed. I think we talked about that at some point also, like putting something under the bed so that the bottom of like the bed poles like don't get worn out. Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon Oser, Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon says that you're not allowed to move these sandals, even if it's like to cover a kli or put under your bed, because we're concerned that you might end up wearing them. Nashru Rov Masmirosav. What if the majority of the nails fell out of the sandal? And there's only like 4 or 5 left. Okay, mutter. That would be acceptable. Okay. Rebbe matir ad sheva. Rebbe is matir even if there's like up to 7 of these nails left. Okay. Okay. Chipeu beor milamata v'kavelo masmeros milamaila mutter. Okay. If you somehow cover it with hide beneath the sandal, and then you like put nails above it, then it's permitted. Why? I don't know. Maybe that like makes it into like a shoe or something like that. I don't really know. Fine. Oh, so Rashi says mutter hoil v'nishtanek mikimo shehaya. Since it changed from how it was, the me'ena ma'ora gazu, because it had to be, everything has to be very similar to that story that happened, you know. And I guess if you add, if you like cover it up and hide, and then you add nails, I guess it's like a different kind of sandal, and it's no longer like an authentic sandal like it was in that story. Okay. So skip the next 2 words. Kimin tas o kimin yased. If you make the nail kind of like you flatten it out so that it's like more like, I don't know, it becomes like flat at one end, or if you make it like super pointy like a peg, o shechipeu kulo b'masmeros, and this is the important part, or that you completely cover it in nails, kadei shelo te'eh karka ochalto mutter, so that the ground doesn't, you know, wear out and you know, decompose or whatever, mess up the leather. So then it is permitted. And that is the support for Rav Sheshes, who says just that if you cover it in nails so that it doesn't mess up the leather, it's permitted. So the ground doesn't mess up the leather, it's permitted. Hagufa kasha. So one second. We have a question. On the one hand, Amart Noshru of Masmerosav, Avagav Dinishtaru Beituva. On the one hand, you said that if the majority of the nails fall out, then it would be permitted. Even though there's still a lot left, right? Let's say there were 100 nails. I'm sure that's way more than you can get in there. But let's say there were 100 nails in the shoe, and 51 of them, which is the majority, fell out. So we're saying that would be permitted. But then we say, right, 51 fell out. So now there's 49 left. We said that would be permitted. But V'hadutani, then we say, Arba o Chamish in Tfei Lob. Then we say, only if there are 4 or 5 left, it would be allowed, but not more than that. So one second, is it 4 or 5, or is it the majority? What's the important thing? So Rav Sheshes lokasha kanche nigmemu kanche ne'ekru. Depends. If like the nails kind of fell out and you can see where the nails were before, so then even if there's a lot more than 4 or 5, it's okay, because it's clear that like this is not how it was originally. And you know, initially it fell out, and because it kind of changed from how it was, so therefore it's not like the and as long as you could see that it's not, you know, it's different than the way that it was originally, so then it would be acceptable. Where if they kind of completely get removed and you can't even tell that they were there originally, so then you have to worry about how many spikes you have, and there can only be 4 or 5 there. Okay? Arba o chamish mutter. We said 4 or 5. Which one is it? 4 or 5? Be specific. Hashta chamish shari arba mibaya. If you're allowed to have 5 nails there, well then certainly you can have 4. So like, what's it do with 4 or 5? Amar Chizda arba misandal cotton ve chamish misandal gadol. So if it's a small shoe, so then 4 would be the max. If it's a large shoe, you can have leeway of an additional 5th nail. V'Rebbe matir ad sheva. Rebbe says that you're allowed to have up to 7 nails. V'atani Rebbe matir ad shlosh esrei. Didn't we learn earlier on in the page that by this sandal that was rubbed out, where the sole was rubbed out, you can add up to 13 nails? So why is he saying 7? So no to shiny. So the Gemara says it's different when we're talking about a worn out sandal. That's why Rebbe says you can have up to 13. Ashadas is lahachi, Rabbi Yochanan nami, lo kasha. Rabbi Yochanan nami, lo kasha, no tashani. Well, once we're saying that a sandal that's worn out is different, well, you could have just answered the same way for Rabbi Yochanan. Because remember, we brought in that whole worn out sandal thing earlier because Rabbi Yochanan said that you can have up to 5 nails in a sandal. Okay, and we said, well, 1 second, we know that a worn out sandal, Rabbi Nassan says you can add 7 nails. Rebbe says 13, and we were kind of like, what's it called? Like, I'm forgetting the word now, but we were kind of like, we're running around trying to find a support for Rabbi Yochanan who says 5, and we found Rabbi Nehorai who said 5 as well. But you could have just answered by saying that price is talking about a worn out sandal, and that's why nobody, and that's, you can't compare that to Rabbi Yochanan who's not talking about a worn out sandal. Okay, so the Gemara says, yeah, you could have said that, by the way, right? You could have said, right now that we say that, even Rebbe, by worn out sandal, he says 13, but by regular sandal, you would say 7. So you could kind of answer the same way for Rabbi Yochanan. You can even say that like Rabbi Nassan, who by worn out sandal says 7, he would say by regular sandal 5, and you could say that Rabbi Yochanan holds like Rabbi Nassan. Okay, Seder. We found Rabbi Nehorai. So, Shalom Yisrael, everybody's happy. Amr of Masna, said Rav Masna, V'amrila, Amr of Achtavoy bar Masna, Amr of Masna. Some say it was of Achtavoy, the son of Rav Masna, who said the name of Rav Masna. Ein halacha Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon. The halacha is not like Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon. Right, we said that you could take a sandal that has these nails in it, and you can use it to cover some kind of a kli, or to put under a bed. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar said you're not allowed to, because we're scared you're going to wear it. So, it comes of Masna to say that the halacha is not like Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon. So, I don't know if I say Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar just now, but I definitely meant to say Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon. So, Pshita, obviously the halacha is not like Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon. Yachid v'ab malacha krabim. Obviously we know that whenever you have a single opinion against the consensus opinion, we go like the consensus opinion and not like the single opinion. So obviously we're not going to go like Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon. So, ma'udetema mistabra taimad Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon biha kamash malan. I may have thought, well, Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon gives a reason for it, and it makes sense because we're concerned that you might end up wearing it. So maybe we would paskin like Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon here. No, we don't. We go like the majority opinion, as always. Amr Reb Chia, says Reb Chia, this is funny. Ilav de karuli bavloi shari isure. If not for the fact that then I would get the reputation and they would call me the Babylonian who just permits things that are forbidden. So have a Sharina Beituva, I would have allowed to put lots of nails in shoes, but then they would have made fun of me and called me the Babylonian who just says that everything is permitted. And Rashi points out that the Gemara in Sukkah says that Rabbi Chia made Aliyah from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael. Rabbi Chia was super early, right? He was a contemporary of Rebbe Yehuda Nasi. He was already living in Bavel, right? He was the uncle of Rav, the great uncle of Rabbi Bar Chana, and he made Aliyah to Eretz Yisrael, okay? And I guess that in Eretz Yisrael, I guess he was nervous about his reputation of being called the Babylonian who just allows all sorts of forbidden things. Okay. V'chama, how much would Rabbi Chia have allowed? B'pumpadisa amrin esrin v'arba. Okay, it would have allowed up to 24 nails in the sandal. B'sura amrin esrin v'tartin. In Surah, they say it would have permitted up till 22. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, and says of Nachman bar Yitzchak, v'simanech, if you want to remember who says what, well, you could say that Ada Asmi Pumbedisa L'Sura Chasar Tarte. Wait, does that even make sense? So if you want to remember, who says what, so you could remember it by saying that when he was traveling from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael, so when he left Pumbedisa and he passed through Surah, so then already two of the nails fell out, meaning he left Kilu, imagine he's walking from Pumbedisa to Surah, and he started with 24 nails in his shoes, and then by the time he got to Surah, 2 of them already fell out, and that's why he only had 2 left. But coming to think of it, if I'm not mistaken, Pumbedisa was more west in Iraq than Surah was. Surah was more to the east. Now, if he was leaving from Pumbedisa to go to Eretz Yisrael, Iraq is to the east of Eretz Yisrael. So if he's left Pumbedisa, he wouldn't be going out of his way to go east through Surah. He would go directly west to go to Eretz Yisrael. So does that even make sense geographically? Or maybe is that some kind of a proof that maybe Surah was actually more west than Pumbedisa? Or maybe I'm just messing these things up, or maybe somebody made a mistake somewhere. I don't know. That's interesting, right? Now, I actually looked up Pumbedisa because I was curious to see if Pumbedisa and Narda were the same thing. So we learned actually in Masechta Brachos, I think it was in the context of like having the like Beis HaKnesses be the highest thing in the city. I have to look it up. But anyways, I think we even learned in Narda that in Brachos that Narda was destroyed. So, and apparently Narda was destroyed, and after Narda was destroyed, Pumbedisa was then built. And guess what else I learned? So Pumbedisa is the current day, this is the modern day city of Fallujah. Pumbedisa is Fallujah. Fallujah is like a hot spot in Iraq. There was like a big military operation there during like the Iraqi war with the United States military. I think it became a big like Islamic State hotspot. Pumbedisa. Where Rabbah and Rav Yosef and Abaye, Fallujah. Interesting. Anyways, friends, that was Daf Samach of Masechta Shabbos. Let's go over some stuff. So we started out with the question of going out with a ring that has a seal on Shabbos. Right, so our Mishnah says if it doesn't have a seal, so it would be patur aval asur. The implication being that if it has a seal, it would be chayav achatas. The question is, why would it be chayav achatas? We have a brayso in the context of Tumah that says that all rings would be considered adornments, and therefore if they're adornments, you shouldn't be chayav achatas for going out with it on Shabbos. So we have three answers. Reb Zera says that our Mishnah is Rabbi Nechemia, who says that the main part of a ring is its seal, and therefore the main thing in the ring is the seal. So, and a seal is not a tachshit. That's why she would be chayav asachat. That's why she would be chayav asachatas if she goes out with a ring with a seal. Rava says that actually, when the brayso says that whether there's a seal, whether there's no seal, it's considered a tachshit. It depends for who. When there's a seal, it's a tachshit for a man. When there's no seal, it's a tachshit for a woman, and therefore a woman who wears a ring with a seal, it would not be a tachshit for her. Therefore, she'd be chayav asachatas. Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak says that 1 second, you're missing everything up. You're mixing everything up. There's Shabbos and there's Tumah. When it comes to Tumah, it's about a kli ma'aseh. It's about something that you can use, and a ring with a seal you can use. Therefore, it's considered it's going to be makabel Tumah. When it comes to Shabbos, it's about a masui. You know, is it a burden or not? And it's not a tachshit, it's not a beauty, it's not an adornment, it's a burden, and therefore you can be chayav achatas on Shabbos. Then we got into this whole thing about shoes, right? We got into a new Mishnah, which had a bunch of things. Then we focused from that Mishnah on the first part, which is about wearing sandals with nails sticking out of them, because of this unfortunate story where there were a bunch of people hiding in a cave, and due to, somebody messing up with the shoes being backwards and then the footprints made by the nails, they all killed each other. So that was a problem. Then we got into all sorts of questions about, how many nails can you put into the shoe, right? We said only if it's for, if it's for beauty purposes, you can have up to maybe Rabbi Yochanan says 5 nails, Rabbi Chanina said 7 nails. You saw all sorts of different machloks about how many nails can you have in those shoes. And that was basically sort of the Amud Beis of the daf, and we said basically that this applies to sandals, doesn't apply to shoes, and everything is based on that story that happened. So if it differs at all from the story that happened, so then it would be permitted on Shabbos. Okay, well, friends, have a great day.